Okay, there we go. So Janet was just talking about woodcock, and that's the first one we're going to look at tonight. So these are calling now, or at least beginning to. Um, they like for nesting, they like lots of cover. When they're displaying, they like sort of an open area where there's short grass or whatever to walk around on. Um, they're easier to hear than to see. If they come out early enough and display, they do a flight display, which we'll talk about. And you'll be able to see them up against the sky, but they'll go quite high when they're doing that. So but when they come down on the ground, they do this peent call that we were just listening, a little buzz. Here, we'll do it again. That beep. And we talked last week about the Wilson snipe, which makes a lot of does its display flights. It makes sound with its specially shaped tail feathers. Woodcocks also have a display flight that they do. They don't use their tail feathers. They have slots in their special shapes in some of the primary feathers in the wings, and they make a sort of a twittering sound. So here's one. So that's done with the wings, and this is the vocalization. So quite easy songs to recognize when you hear them. The peent, the buzz comes through. It's probably easier to hear. The twittering, you have to be tuned into it. It's quite high pitched and it's not terribly loud, but it's if it isn't drowned out by the spring peepers, you can hear it. I'll just play the wing noise again. A little squeak is also the woodcock. There's a buzz too. Um, so that's American woodcock. Woodcock, like the snipe, are a shorebird. They're in the sandpiper family. And the long beak is for poke. They can poke it way down into the soil, and they can actually open the end of the beak enough to grab a worm or something when they contact it. It's got very large eyes. It's largely nocturnal, or at least a dawn and dusk thing, which is usually called crepuscular. So it needs the large eyes for seeing in poor light. Also, you'll notice the eyes are way towards the back of the head. They have pretty much 360-degree vision because their eyes are set so far back and on the sides of their head. In fact, I think they've actually got binocular vision both behind and in front. I don't know how their brain coordinates all that, but quite often you'll only see a woodcock if you flush it. They sit down in the dead leaves. Their nests are usually just in the dead leaves, four eggs just sitting in a little cup in the leaves. And if you look at the color, the way they're mottled and colored on the back, they're really well camouflaged. I wonder if they've got one on the ground here that's camouflaged. Let's just see. Yeah. See, there's one sitting on a nest. And you can walk on, like just about step on them before they'll flush. That one's walking. Yeah, that might even be the same one. That's another one sitting down. So you can see the only thing that gives them away sometimes is the eye, but you don't usually go walking through the leaves looking for woodcock eyes. So um, just to tell them from a snipe. The snipe has stripes on the head. The woodcock has bars. And the snipe are pretty striped anyway. If we have time at the end, I'll go back and compare the two. So that's woodcock. And as I say, they're displaying now. Janet's heard them already. Um, Great horned owl. So I'm starting out with some nocturnal birds. The woodcock, you'll only hear them displaying towards dark. Great horned owl, one of our commoner owls in the area, although less common than they were 30 years ago, like a lot of other things. So you've got two birds there calling back and forth, probably a pair because one is higher pitched than the other. So one is the male and one is the female. You often hear them duetting when they really get going. Um, it's 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 probably getting late to hear the great horns calling much now. They're probably feeding young um, by now. They nest way back in late January, early February. They'll just sit there and let the snow cover them. Um, they quite often nest in old red-tailed hawk nests or crow's nests. So the nests are open quite often. They will also nest in a sheltered spot where a branch is broken or something. Um, so the call is sort of quiet, but it actually carries quite a distance. So hoo 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 hoo, quite a distinct pattern. There's not much you can confuse it with. Um, to identify a great horned owl, it's the only large owl we have with the horns, with the ear tufts. These aren't actually ears. The ears are in behind these facial discs beside the eyes. They're in back of there somewhere. And the facial discs are actually they're like radar dishes. They're to collect sound so they can hear very small sounds. Um, I've seen I've seen a great gray or a hawk owl, a great gray owl or a hawk owl by sound dive through 2 feet of snow and come up with a vole. So they have incredible hearing. Long-eared owl, which we're not going to be talking about because they're not as common. They also have ear tufts, but they're about the size of a crow. These are big. They're bigger than a red-tailed hawk. They're a very large owl. Um, these do come out and hunt before dark sometimes. If you're out driving, especially back roads, just at dusk, look at the tree, keep an eye on the treetops, sort of against the where the sky is bright, where the sun has just set. And I have many times over the years seen one just silhouetted up in the top of a tree. They start calling a lot to attract mates or to maintain their territory even before the end of December. We often get them on Christmas bird counts calling. The other common owl we have around here, probably more common now, but oh, great horn. I should have talked about habitat almost anywhere, but they tend to do a lot of their hunting out in the open. So they'll nest just in a hedgerow where there's a tall tree with an old hawk nest in it. But they will also be in woodlands. Barred owl is the other fairly large owl that's common around here. So barred owl, um, very much a woodland owl. Uh, even more confined to woodlands than great horned. Um, quite different in pattern from the great horns. No ear tufts. And the other thing to look for is the dark eyes. Our only common owl with dark eyes around here is barred owl. In fact, pretty much our only owl around here that has dark eyes. Um, the great horned owls and all our other owls have yellow irises. So you see the black pupil in the middle of a yellow eye. Okay, let's go back to the song. There's a pair talking here. Ours have just started calling here. They nest later than the great horned. Um, one was hit on our road back in the winter. I suspect it might have been one of our pair. I'm not sure. It was down a bit, but they have a fairly large territory. And so I hadn't heard much out of them this winter, just seen one occasionally. So I was a little concerned, but they're starting to get vocal now. This morning there was one calling at about 8 o'clock in the morning, so you can even hear them during the day when they really get territorial. Um, Very distinctive calls, although they have quite a range of vocalizations. But the standard territorial advertising song is "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" So let's listen to that again. Also called the eight hooter because it does eight hoots. So there's two here again. Um, those sort of almost cackling notes, that's a different one calling. They can do some pretty extreme sounds sometimes. Not hearing anything. Oh, yeah. That's another one we hear here sometimes. There's two going there again. So quite common around here. If you go out in the evening now down any back road that goes through a forest and stop, you have a good chance of hearing one. So that's
They're
Barnell.
all, yeah, they're all through the NCC trails as well.
Yeah,
I
anywhere
know.
with a decent sized woodlot. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. We always have at least one pair nesting on our property. They like hollows. I've never heard of them nesting in old bird nests. They usually use a hole in a tree. Here we've got quite a few big basswoods, and old basswoods always have hollows and holes and that. So they and the wood ducks use those. We have one fairly common small owl, the northern saw-whet. These are also not as common as they used to be. Um, the last two atlases previous to the one that just ended, I found quite a few calling saw-whet owls, but I didn't find any this time. But I didn't do as much owling in this atlas either. I'm getting old. I don't like getting pulled over by the cops at 2 in the morning because I'm stopping to listen for owls. So here's the saw-whet. So they're small. And when I say small, I mean, they're about 6 or 7 inches tall. Um, I can't think of anything that's sort of approximately. Maybe the bulk is about like a robin's, but with a short tail and a big head on it. So quite small. Um, this almost rusty brown streaking on the chest and breast. Some big white spots on the back, and like all owls, the facial disc. They're pretty distinctive. Let's look at one or two more pictures, see what they got. Yeah. So as I say, they're small. They're hard to spot because they're small. If you want to see owls, especially the saw-whet, which can be very skulky during the day when they're trying to sleep, they're very nocturnal. So during the day when they're trying to sleep, they'll usually be in thick cover in a cedar tree or a thick spruce or something.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say, Ken, most of the times if you want to see owls, go to their areas where they are roosting during the day and you'll more likely to see them because at night they'll be flying around and
that's
hunting. You
right.
may
Yeah.
not see them.
And the best way to find a saw-whet is to listen for the chickadees and nuthatches, because they'll if they find them, that's how I usually find them here is I'll hear the chickadees and nuthatches, and depending on the time of year, maybe robins and woodpeckers also just joining it, but they'll be scolding something. So if you hear chickadees doing sort of a dee 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 dee, so they sound really upset, it's worth going over and just checking in the cover and see if they have an owl. They'll also scold barred owls. So it's worth checking if you hear birds scolding something in a woodlot. Um, the song is pretty distinctive. The only thing you have to think about is spring peeper. It's not as high pitched. I'll play it again. It's more of a toot than a peep. I haven't tried for them there for many years, but during the second breeding bird atlas, or was it maybe it was the first breeding bird atlas in the 80s, I was going down the Carbine Road, which goes up from behind Pakenham off the Waba Road and goes up into Pakenham Mountain towards High Lonesome. And I had four males calling back and forth across a beaver pond in there one night in early March, I think it was. So if you get out and listen, you can probably find these in. They like fairly extensive woodlands for breeding. Do you ever find them breeding in the NCC areas, Janet?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Yes. What the best thing to do is if you've got a nice kind of thickish stand of cedar is, and
yeah,
you will see if you're walking around somewhere that's got stands of cedar, you will see footprints underneath. Those are the guys that are looking for the saw-whets.
yeah, yeah. But listen for birds finding them for you. Um, they nest in holes, old flicker holes mostly. So that shows you how small they are if they can nest in a flicker hole. Probably they would use a pileated hole too. But when you get up to something the size of a pileated, you're starting to compete with wood ducks and hooded mergansers and things. So that's the owls that we're going to cover. There are other owls that are in the area, but those are the commonest ones that you hear. Still in nocturnal birds, um, we're going to go to common nighthawk. This is what they call a goat sucker, same family as whippoorwill. The old legend was they would suck milk from goats. Complete legend, of course. They'd have no use for milk. They're insect feeders. They're actually beneficial in that they're eating lots of flying insects. Common nighthawks and eastern whippoorwills are two species, along with all the other birds that fly to catch flying insects. They've their numbers have plummeted. When I was a young birder in my early teens, every town and city had nesting nighthawks. They used to nest on the gravel roofs, on the gravel. And so you'd always hear nighthawks in the evening flying over and calling. Now they've moved. They're not in. I don't hear them in the cities and towns at all anymore. You have to go out into the country where there's rock and that from the nest on. They don't like to nest in cover. They'll like cover around them, but they like a rock or gravel or something to lay their eggs on. Just two eggs laid on the ground. They're very hard to find. I've only ever found one nighthawk nest, although I've been close to others. So here's eastern nighthawk, common nighthawk, sorry. So that's the call, that buzz. Don't confuse it with the whipper, with the nighthawk, with the woodcock buzz. It's quite different. Um, if you went out now and heard anything that sounds like that, it's a woodcock. Nighthawks won't be back till at least the middle of May, probably later. They're insect feeders. They have to wait for the flying insects for there to be enough of them for them to feed. They also do a sound with their wings, so I'm just hoping they have it here. I didn't check ahead of time, so um, try back again. There's a call. What's that? Yeah, that's the call. That's the call. So that beep. Sometimes they call it a call. Sometimes they're calling it the primary sound. Oh, there's. Um, we'll get that one again. You hear that? Woo! That's made with the wings. Let's start it over. That's the vocalization. That whir is the wings. So they'll go high in the air and then dive. And this will usually be in the evening or even after dark, but they're often out before it's very dark. And so they go way up and then dive. And that sound is the wind going through their feathers as they pull out of the dive at the bottom. It's a fairly spectacular display flight. So you have two sounds, that beep and then the woof, which is just wind noise in the feathers. The other goat sucker we're going to talk about is eastern whippoorwill. These used to be much commoner. There used to be places right around the edge of Ottawa you could go and hear them. I don't know of any now. They're in the burnt lands out here, along Golden Line Road and that most years. Um, but they're getting harder to find. But you have just another really good place to hear them is again up the Carbine Road. If there's a hydro cut that crosses the Carbine Road about two-thirds of the way up to High Lonesome, the Mississippi Madawaska Land Trust property up there, which is a great birding location if you've never been there. It's open to the public. But anyway, at that hydro cut, if you go there in the evening in mid-May, you will certainly hear whippoorwills.
Yeah, where we usually get whippoorwills and nighthawks is up along Thomas Dole and near the
Hmm,
Carp Ridge.
right.
But be very careful if you go there. There are people whipping along there at rapid speed, so you need to be careful where you park and about where you're standing on that road.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy place to park, so yeah. Anyway, whippoorwill, let's listen. So it says its name. Whippoorwill, whippoorwill, whippoorwill. Let's get another one. So again, they're a night bird. very nocturnal. Sometimes you'll flush one out of the leaf. They sit in the leaves, sort of like the woodcocks do. You can see on this picture the long whiskers around the beak. And the beak looks small, but it actually extends way back almost to the eye. So they can open that right up when they're catching insects. Nighthawks are the same because they're flying around at night and catching insects. Sort of like bats, but they do it, as far as I know, they do it by sight rather than by echolocation like bats do. Let's listen to one or two more. Nice clear one. That that little chuck that you're hearing, that's also part of the song, but you don't usually hear that unless you're quite close, like really close. So that's the nocturnal birds that I was going to talk about tonight. And then I was going to just do I've just pulled up five of our commoner species of woodpeckers. I thought we'd talk about woodpeckers a little bit. So one that has just come back in the last week is yellow-bellied sapsucker. If you go out into a wooded area right now, you will hear, especially if there's a, a fairly extensive woodlot. You won't find them in suburban neighborhoods usually, maybe in migration. But they're drumming and calling now. They're all around our place now. So anyway, let's listen. So that's a common call, that kind of a whiny squeal. I hope they have a drum primary sound. What's that? Okay. So that's a typical yellow-bellied sapsucker drum. I'll play it again. So it's very irregular. You can't mistake it for any of the other woodpeckers. It's bappity bap 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 bap. So it starts out rather rapid and irregular and then tapers off. So let's play it again. That's the calls. That's a call they make when they're interacting with another sapsucker. They're doing that here now.
Yeah, the males can get quite agitated with each
Oh
other.
yeah. Yeah, very territorial, very interactive. So if you go out now into a wooded area, you'll hear that drum. So they're back now. So they just got back, but they hit the ground running. They start calling and displaying as soon as they're back. Same day. I think it was Thursday they showed up at our place and they started right off. Well, the first day, a few more squealing and that, but then they got into the drumming very quickly. Let's just get a few more calls. That one's tapping. That's not the drum. The drum is like a song. It's a territorial and advertising thing. But they all the woodpeckers feed by tapping with their bills, but it doesn't sound like the drum. Sapsuckers, I wonder if they've got a picture that shows it. Sapsuckers have yeah. So here's a sapsucker. This is a male. It's got the red throat. They've also got red on top of the head. And the best mark for yellow-bellied sapsucker, I think, well, other than the red throat, which is pretty distinctive, and the red cap going to the front of the head, and this white stripe here, but they've got a long, this isn't the best, but we'll look at this one first. There's a long white stripe down the lead edge of the wing here, which is very distinctive. But here, you see these little holes? those are sapsucker sap wells. So they do them in rows like that. They don't go very deep. They just go into the cambium layer under the bark, and those will actually ooze sap. And the sapsuckers use those as a source of energy. They also attract insects, which they will eat as well, but it's primarily a source of sap. That's why they're called sapsuckers. Just an interesting little side note, when the ruby-throated hummingbirds first come back to our area, there aren't very many flowers. They come back around the 10th of May, give or take. There's not a lot of flowers that they can get nectar out of. And one of the things that keeps them going is sapsucker wells. They'll go to these little holes. They'll eat the insects, but they're also looking for the sweet uh, the sweet sap that the wood sapsuckers are generously making available. Um, just going to see what else they got here in the way of pictures. There's a pair. They got sap wells there again. Yeah, you can see the yellow on this one. There is yellow. They really see the white stripe too. This is a male again with the red throat, but this bright white stripe down the side. And they do have a bit of yellow on the breast and down the flanks here. Um, it's fairly easy to see if you get a good look at the front, but you can't always see that because they're up against a tree. Like all woodpeckers, they hold themselves vertically on the side of a tree. Yeah. So that's a nest hole. Like all woodpeckers, they drill a hole in wood, or all our woodpeckers anyway, they drill a hole in wood for a nest. Um, Most birds that nest in a hole have pure white eggs. All the woodpeckers have pure white eggs. So, yeah. So they can do quite a few chatters and squeaks. So that'll be two that are interacting, either friendly interaction or unfriendly. I'm not sure which, but you often hear that sort of that chatter when they're communicating close up with another sapsucker. Okay, um, let's get the easy ones out of the way first. I'm going to go to pileated woodpecker. That's the call. Let's try a different one. Yeah. We're going to talk about flicker next, but the loud call, that long, I don't know what to call it, but that long call with a series of uh, yelping notes is you get it in both species. It's deeper pitched in pileated and much less regular, although that example was pretty regular. Let's listen to a couple more. Yeah. Here's a drum. A little rump warbler singing. So it's a big woodpecker. These are the size of a crow, with the big red crest, very heavy beak, as you can see here. This is a male because the mustache mark has red in it. And the red of the crest comes right down to the beak. The red in the female, this would be black, and the red cuts off about here. I'll see if I can find a female in a minute, but they look enough alike so you don't have to worry about identification of the two sexes. Um, so because they're a big, powerful woodpecker, the drum is big and powerful, and it echoes. You can hear these drumming from a kilometer away. And they usually look for something very hollow. They want good resonance. All the woodpeckers do that when they're drumming because the drumming is to advertise they want it to count. Sapsuckers are notorious for drumming on road signs or flashings or eaves troughs, something that's hollow metal. They can get a real good noise out of. Pileated woodpeckers, in my experience, usually drum on wood, but they'll look for something quite hollow. So let's listen to it again. That's one feeding. You cannot, in a general way, it's not easy to tell woodpeckers apart by the feeding taps. Most of them sound a lot alike. You can often tell a pileated, though, by the strength of it. Like it sounds like somebody's got a small axe and is whacking a tree. Now let's see if I can get that drum again. So it starts out slow and speeds up towards the end. A bit like when you drop a ping pong ball on a table. Just wondering if they have an. Oh, here's another drum. Let's try this one. Throw. Okay, that's a really typical one on a very hollow tree. And see here, kind of diminishes in volume and speeds up towards the end. Let's do it one more time. So these were drumming a lot 2 or 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard them as much lately. So they might be getting busy making nest holes or something, but you can still hear them. And of course, the calls they use all year round. So, okay, let's go to flicker, northern flicker, because it's the one that is most easily confused with a pileated woodpecker. Okay, so flicker goes on and on, very level. There's no up and down. There's no speeding up and slowing down. They just level and goes for quite a long time. Let's listen to the flicker one more time. Flickers are just getting back. I haven't had one here yet, but I know some have been reported. They had a good number go through Derby Hill Hawkwatch yesterday, so they're coming. So you can be listening for them. I'm going to go back to the pileated now so you can hear the difference. Fairly short. The flicker would still be going. They can do lots of other, like they do shorter calls too, or just single yelps. So let's go back to the flicker. So the pileated would have stopped by now. Let's try a couple more. Yeah, that's another type of call they can do. They all have that kind of squeaky quality, though. So higher pitch and far longer than the pileated. And as I say, these will be starting up any day. I didn't think to tee it up. I used to think that flickers didn't do a drum, but I actually recorded one drumming down near a beaver pond last spring, and but it doesn't sound like the sapsucker or a pileated. it might be confusable with a hairy. I should have teed that up. I didn't think of it today. Um, so that's the flicker. They'll be back any day. Flickers are a bit different. They nest in holes in trees. They make holes, usually in something that's pretty dead, so it isn't too hard. You'll see its beak isn't so much a chisel beak as most of the woodpeckers, and that's because they get a lot of their food off the ground. They'll go down and they'll often eat ants, so they'll go down on the ground to get ants. Um, let's see if we can get a better picture, maybe. Well, maybe this one's as good as any. So the one we have around here is the race we have is yellow shafted flicker. So it has yellow in the wings and tail, especially in the feather shafts. You'll see that when they're in flight. They got these little round spots all over the belly and a black crescent on the chest. This is a male, so it has a black mustache. The females don't have a mustache. So you can tell the males and females apart. Little flash of red on the back of the head, like most male woodpeckers. Um, let's see if they got some other sounds here. Yeah, so northern flicker only can be confused with pileated woodpecker. Oh, there's a drum. Yeah. To me, the drum sounds quite a bit like a hairy woodpecker. I don't hear them drum much, but I may have just not recognized them in the past. Let's listen to that one again. Actually, it's probably less like a hairy and more like a downy almost. So that's a flicker drum. And as I say, I've only really started to realize they do drums, so I can't give you a lot of tips on telling them. Um, okay, downy woodpecker. Go away. I don't want to update Acrobat. That's the call. So is that. So I have a way of telling downy woodpecker the long call that they do. So this is it. Do you notice as it goes, it drops in pitch? So it's dee 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 dee. So I always tell people, remember, the downy goes down. So if the pitch drops, it's a downy woodpecker. They do a lot of single calls too. Oh, here's a drum. Let's listen to a drum. Okay. Now, downies here have really just started drumming. They drum later than the pileated and the Harry's. We're going to get to Harry in a minute. Um, but it's quite distinctive. Let's do it again. So the Harry drum is quite short, and you can just about count the strokes because it's just a little slower. So let's go to Harry. That's the call. Here's a drum. So it's a little longer, and the strokes are so close together, it's just a vibration. You can't count them. You can't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You just can't go fast enough. Just wondering if they have another drum to listen to. That's an agitated call. Just a standard call. Supposed to be a drum in here. Well, it's taking a while. Let's try another one. Yeah. Hear how rapid that is? All run together and longer than a downy. Let's go back to downy. Now, which one had the drum in it? Nope, that wasn't it. Here it is. Yeah, quite short, and you can count the strokes. Now let's go back to the hairy and get some of the calls. So that's the long call of the hairy, and it's the quality is different from the downy, but it's hard to tell that. So what you listen for is that it's level in pitch, and it's also louder, more of a chatter rather than a series of pick notes. It's quite loud and chattery. Let's get another one. But it stays level. When they get excited, you can get a lot of different sounds. So it doesn't go down at the end. There's a call, there's a drum. So the drums are actually fairly distinctive. So most of our woodpeckers can be identified, at least these common ones can be identified by the drum. I'm not comfortable doing that with flickers yet. I'm going to have to work on that this year now that I'm aware that they do drum. They do a lot more of the calling uh, during mating season than they do drumming, in my experience. But as I say, I might have just been overlooking them. Identification of these two. Hairy and downy woodpeckers are almost identical in pattern. It's really quite strange, especially since they have recently put them in two different genera, which I assume that's been done on DNA evidence. Okay, this is a typical hairy. Um, the red cap and the black and white and the black tail with white outer tail feathers, both species have that. However, in the hairy woodpecker, the white outer tail feathers are always pure white, no black markings. They also have this spur of black that comes down in the lower part of the throat or the upper part of the breast, however you want to talk about it. Um, they also have a longer bill, a heavier, more of a chisel bill. Downy woodpeckers go into smaller sticks and twigs and or even they'll go into mullein stalks or they'll open the galls on goldenrod stems that are just sort of pithy and they'll drill into those to get the grubs out of the inside. I'm just going to see if they have one that shows from the back. Can't see it too well there. Surely they've got one I can see. Well, this is a female because it hasn't got the red, but you see this black mark that divides the back of the head here. In a downy, so the red mark in a male would be here, but that black center would still be there. In downy woodpeckers, there is no black. The red just sits right here in the middle of the white. We'll try to get a downy from the back. I'm just looking for one that shows it in the male. That's a weird call. There doesn't seem to be a good one of the male. Well, you can sort of see it here. There's the red. You can just see the black here. And there'll be more, it divides the red. So there's more red on the other side. But always the chisel beak, the black spur, and the pure white tail feathers, outer tail feathers. Okay, let's check out downy again. This is a downy. Let's get a better picture. There's a nice one. This is a female. No red on the back of the head. Okay. Very small bill because it doesn't do the heavy work that a hairy bill does. Also, there's the outer white tail feathers with these spots. There's not always that many. This is a heavily marked one. Let's try another one or two. This one, if you have to look carefully, it's just one or two spots here. There's the red with no black center and a very small bill. Another female. A male, but you can't really see there. You can sort of see it there. So see there's no black coming down to divide this, and there's the red spot. This is a male. Black spots in the white. Small bill. And also, of course, hairy woodpeckers are twice the size of downy woodpeckers on average. The tough part of that is if you see one by itself, it's not always to get a good idea of how big it is. If it's at your suet feeder and it's shorter than the length of your suet cage, it's probably a downy. If it's longer, it's a hairy. So there is quite a size difference. If you see them together, you're going to laugh at yourself and wonder how you ever had trouble telling them apart. But the best marks are the red without the black division, and especially look for these white tail feathers with black markings in them, and the little bill. This is a male, so he's got a slightly heavier bill maybe than some, but another female, but all with the small bill. Let's listen to a couple more sounds. How are we doing here? Just tapping. Let's go. I don't think I've ever heard a downy woodpecker making that call. Yeah, hear it going down in pitch and slowing down at the end. Okay, so that's the common woodpeckers, and those are all fairly common. They're all in woodlands. Flickers will come onto lawns to get ants. So they're a bit more social. They can be in suburbs and that. They just need trees or telephone poles that they can make holes in. You can tell a pileated woodpecker hole by the size. They're large. They're probably 4 inches across. They tend to be a little bit oval. Often nest in poles, hydro poles and telephone poles.
I was going to say, Ken, that the whole shape, Michael Runts was showing us that it tends to have a little bit of a peak at the top
Right?
because its crest has to get in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's not symmetrical. It's not perfectly round. Downy and hairy holes, their nesting holes, and sapsucker holes tend to be quite round. Of course, they're much smaller anyway. You can tell pileated woodpecker feeding holes quite often. They probably don't show one here. You can certainly see them if you go on iNaturalist. Um, that's not a very good picture. Is this a female? Yeah. So here's a female pileated. It's got the black forehead. The red doesn't come all the way to the base of the bill, and the mustache is black. Um, yeah. Pileated woodpeckers spend a fair bit of time going after carpenter ant colonies in trunks of trees or even fallen logs. Sometimes they'll even go out, they'll follow the roots out on the ground for a few feet, but they make these trench-like holes. Um, they'll be long and fairly maybe 2 or 3 inches wide, and they'll go right down the side of the trunk sometimes because they're following carpenter ant galleries in the wood. So and the feeding holes tend to be at least long ovals and sometimes long trenches down the side of the tree. Okay, are we ready for a quiz?
Oh, of course we are. We
Yeah,
were all paying
everybody
attention.
everybody jumped on that, eh?
Yep, yep.
Okay, let's try a quiz. We're starting out with an easy one. You better look at the chat, eh? There's a lot of chats in here.
The barred owl.
Barred owl, yes. Yep. Yep. So several people got that one. I better why can't I? Oh, there it is. Next question. Saw-whet, yeah, several people got it. Saw-whet owl, yep. Northern saw-whet. Just simple toots, and they can go on and on like that. Oh, it gave you everything, didn't it? Yeah, that's right. It's a downy. Several people got it. The drum and the long call helped. Whoops, did I forget? Oh, I know what happened. There were
Yep.
some that were on the next page and I forgot to do them. Go
Uh-oh.
back.
Yes.
That is a sandhill crane. I just, my bad. I better go back and pick these up. Just gotta move the chat out of the way. Sorry about that. So these are wetland. I had a few wetland species. Oh, somebody was asking in the chat about shorebirds. Well, we've done a few. We did killdeer, we did Wilson snipe, and we did uh, woodcock, American woodcock. Because we don't have very many breeding shorebirds, and that's most of them. There are a couple of others. Um, Upland sandpiper breeds in the area. They're not very common, so I hadn't included them. When you're trying to keep the number down to something manageable, you have to drop some. The other one that does breed around here is spotted sandpiper, actually fairly common. I could have included them, but I didn't. So it's just a matter of choices. Okay, wetland birds. American bittern. Can't see here. Go away. Bitterns probably aren't back yet, but they'll be back by early May. So that's their territorial call. They'll sit out in the cattails and do that. You hear more bitterns than you see because the call that song is loud and you can hear it from a good distance off. It starts off with these sort of gulpy notes, which I think it's getting air in so it can do the calls. So they're one of the old names the country people used to call it was stake driver. And if I play it again, you'll see why. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep everything on my desktop here so I can see it. It's getting in the way. Hear that? So that's American bittern. It's a heron. It's the only heron I've included because you hear it more than you see it. Very well camouflaged. It's got these stripes down its front and all mottled on the back. When they're alarmed, they'll stick their beak straight up in the air with the neck stretched out a bit. So they're very hard to spot in cattails, which is where you nearly always see them. They got the long, sharp fishing beak, eat lots of fish, frogs, probably more frogs than fish. They're fairly common, but you have to listen for them, and they like extensive cattails.
These
Okay.
guys are over 2 feet in length. So if you're ever at Petrie Island, when you go across the bridge there and you're at the marsh, you may encounter one that's half that size, and that's a least bittern, but they don't sound the same. So,
Yeah.
and
And
again,
they're
from
quite
my,
tiny.
yeah, but they do nest at Petrie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, they nest in some of the big marshes. They have been in the spring at the lagoons here in Elmont too. I'm not sure they've ever stayed the summer. It's a bit hard to tell because they're so skulky, but they've also had them at the settling pond behind Canadian Tire in Carleton Place. And there was one there last year that was quite easy to get a glimpse of because there isn't the cattails aren't as extensive there, so you could get a look at them sometimes. Anyway, these guys are fairly large and fairly common, but you have to listen for them. You do sometimes see them in flight. So in flight, they're just all brown, a heron, but also with the neck folded up like herons do when they fly, the legs sticking out behind, but the legs aren't as long as a great blue heron. But they're all brown with black wingtips. And so it's just a slow flight like most of the herons. Okay, we're going to do a couple of rails. So this is Virginia rail, which is probably the commonest around here. So that's their territorial call. It kiddick, 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 kiddick. Let's see what else they got here. It's another call. That one's quite common, and the kiddick, kiddick, kiddick is quite common. I haven't heard that other one as often. So this sounds sort of like a grunting pig. Let's do it again. The rails are marsh birds, and they will call during the day, but they do get more vocal towards evening. They don't need huge marshes, but they do need a fair bit of cattail or at least long sedges to breed in. They have bred at our beaver pond once. They were successful. We saw the little ones running around, but they're very skulky. So you want to learn the rail calls. So learn this one. Kidik, 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 kidik. And this one. Okay. That's more of a contact call or a call they make when they're bothered by you being there. It's just a little kick. Yeah. So that's the common calls of the Virginia rail. They're not very big. Um, Maybe the size of a robin, but they've got fairly long legs and a long down curved bill. And they're sort of rusty with black and white bands in the lower belly and towards the tail. But you'll see them just going along the edges of the cattails, quite skulky. The chicks are just little black fluff balls about the size of a ping pong ball. Don't know if they got some. That's not a chick. Anyway, fairly recognizable both because of the bill and also the calls are quite distinctive. Our other rail is the Sora. That's a whinny call, quite common. So they have that whinny call, the and they have that sort of curry as well. And they have that kind of a keek. I have trouble telling that keek call of the Sora from the keek call of Virginia rail. So your best thing is to listen for one of the more distinctive calls. Yeah, you'll hear that one a lot. There's a preweep. Yeah, that's a common call. The winnow is fairly common too. And that keek call when they're just walking around through the vegetation as well. Also a marsh bird, also very skulky. Um, I think in my experience, Soras are a little more inclined to come out where you can see them, but I'm not sure there's a lot of difference. Anyway, a Sora, uh, it's the same size pretty much as a Virginia rail, but it's got a short beak, a yellow beak like a chicken, instead of the long down curved beak like the Virginia rail. It's got a black mask on the face, and it's sort of gray or bluish gray down the front. From there, from about here back, it looks a lot like a Virginia. Again, the long legs, but the short beak and the black mask are the thing to look for. There's that sort of winnowing call again. Okay, that's the rails. Related to the rails, in the same order, are the cranes. And we have one crane locally. When I was young, we hardly ever saw sandhill cranes in the Ottawa area. Now they're nesting all over the place. They've really re-established themselves across southern Ontario in the last 40 or 50 years. Let's listen to one. Can't confuse those with anything. Um, we had a pair fly over here on the 10th of March, which was a bit early, and we've had we usually see them in pairs once they get migrated. When they're migrating, you'll sometimes see larger groups. I had a flock of 12 fly over one year, but usually we see a pair, and they're still flying around. Um, they like a fairly large marsh to nest in, or a large wetland. Doesn't have to be cattails, but they're often in cattail marshes. Definitely a wetland bird, although they will come out to feed in cornfields and hay fields, especially during migration or later in the summer when there's corn and that to eat. Um, they all sound, I don't know if there's any others. Oh, yeah. Listen for them because they'll call when they're flying. Just look up and look for them. You can, I'm just wondering if they got one in flight. Because when they fly, yeah, there you go. When they fly, the long legs stick out the back and the long neck sticks out the front. So a great blue heron, the neck is folded, so you don't see a long neck out the front. So they don't fly like a heron, and when they're on the ground, they don't look much like a heron. But people do confuse them because they're tall, wading birds. And there's some in flight. They're getting quite common around here. Just listen for them. That'll draw your attention to them. Big gray birds, tall, long necks, with a red naked patch on the top of the head here. Um, the posture is very different from a heron. Just want to see one sitting from the. Yeah, there's some sitting. So the back kind of slopes down to these fluffy feathers that are from the tail coverts or the parts of the wings. They give you this sort of a fluffy back end, and you can see the red cap. There's no feathering on that, it's just red skin. Beak is shorter than a great blue heron's beak. And they're gray or brown. They can be quite brownish too. There's several races in North America. Okay, shall we? We still got time. Shall we try a quiz again? I apologize for the
Sure.
confusion there. Oh, that's a nasty one. It's a rail. As I say, I can't really tell the calls apart. I'm thinking that one's probably a Virginia, but let's see if I'm right. Okay, I got a bit lucky. It is more of a peep and less of a keek than the Sora, I think, but I don't count on it. That's the Winnie. Yeah, Sora. Okay. Several people got that one. Downy, yes. Several people got it. Downy woodpecker. It goes down. Not as noticeable as some. So the downy goes down. Oh, giving you a drum and a call. Yes. Yes, pileated is right. That's definitely pileated. Short. The call is quite short, and the drum is different. Pileated. Here we go. The drum sort of tapers off. Woodcock, yes, somebody, Janet got it. Um, so that was a woodcock. There you can see how camouflaged they can be. This one's on a nest. The only nest I ever found, I flushed the female off of it from about 6 inches in front of my boot. Otherwise, I never would have found it. Yeah, barred owl. Several people have got it. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you? Yep, several people got it. Flicker. Very long call. Goes on and on. Actually, good. Yeah. Um, that's a Harry, I'm pretty sure. Well, almost certain. So you did well on that one. The Downy and Harry are a good pair to work on because you'll hear them a lot, and they're common, and they're quite hard to tell apart. I say quite hard. They're not that hard, but you have to listen to them a bit to get comfortable with them. So
Yeah, the Harry's for me is a lot squeakier and more emphatic than the
yes,
Downy.
yeah,
The
yeah,
just the pick call.
yeah, yeah. The Downy is just a little pick, and the Harry's more of a squeak. Yeah, more. There's more volume and more music, more sound, more notes in it or something. Yeah. Great horned owl, yes. Yep, good. Lots of people got that one. Yep, somebody got it. Yellow-bellied sapsucker. That's going to be a little tricky because we didn't really listen to one that sounded like that. See how you can do with it. Yeah, is that you calling it a saw-whet, Sambath? Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's not the usual call, but they do some other calls. Yep, well done.
And if they come in close to you and they don't like what they see, they may actually hiss at you.
There's a Wilson snipe calling in the background there and winnowing. So that tells you you're in a wetland. Yeah, bittern. Somebody got it. Sounds like he's choking on something. Sandhill crane. Yep, several people got it. That's a flock by the sound of it. They're quite vocal. I don't think it's a Sora. To be quite honest, I'm puzzled by that call. If I have to guess, I'm wondering if it's yeah.
It's for
I think it
me,
might be a woodcock, actually.
woodcock, yes.
Let's try that.
Say
Nope.
no.
Okay.
Or what about the whippoorwill?
Oh, yes, they can just do a little chuck. Okay, well, we won't get it. Doesn't matter. Now let's see. Oh, it's a nighthawk. I've
Oh,
never heard that call, so it's probably near a nest or something. Yeah. So I got fooled by that one too. So nobody has to be embarrassed by that one.
Whippoorwill.
Yep, for sure. That's a really rapid one. We're getting a repeat. Maybe we've been through everything. Shouldn't have. Yep, that's a bittern again. Downy, that's right. I guess we've had everything. We're starting to repeat. Oh, I guess I didn't go to the next question. We can. I'll put you out of your misery. That's a sapsucker. So good. You did well on that quiz. Uh, Even some of the fairly hard ones some people got. So keep working on them. Um, we're pretty much out of time here, so um, did you have anything you wanted to say, Janet? This is our
uh,
this is our last night,
yep.
so thanks for your attention from me and your patience with the old guy trying to make the technology work. And yeah, Janet, you
No, I don't really have anything except for next week. Derek will be doing the introduction to birding at Point Pelee. The other thing is there are a lot of people that I see on here who have registered for the woodcock outing on Friday night. I will be doing another recon tomorrow night and figuring out how we're going to do this. My main concern is that we have so many people registered that parking could be kind of an issue. So I will be getting back to all those people who have registered already as of yesterday. Okay.
Thank
And
you.
I think Samvath had a question maybe for you, Ken. You want to
yeah,
take
go ahead,
one last
Sam.
one?
I'll give you one question. You better unmute. Yeah.
Where can we find? Where can we? Do you know any good place we can find sandal cranes and other rails and water birds?
Yeah, any big marsh will do, Samvath. Um, uh,
Any any points?
Sandhill cranes you can hear from a very long distance. So if you just listen for them, you'll hear them if they're there or if they're flying over. Rails and stuff, any of the places with cattails. A good place for rails is the bridge on Thomas Dolan Parkway where it crosses Constance Creek.
I heard when I had gone to Mare Blue Bog, I saw in one of the signs it said that there are Virginia rails hiding in
Yes,
the
there would
cat.
certainly be rails there too. Yep. We
I know
sometimes
there are Virginia rails, but are there Soras?
they can be in the same marshes, but I think Sora's will. I don't know. I don't know. They aren't always in the same marshes. Like I seem to find Virginia rails more commonly than Soras out here, but
So Mare
might
Blue
just
Bog
be the
and
marshes I'm in.
so Mare Blue Bog and Mud Lake are good.
I don't know how good Mud Lake is for rails. I've never had any there. I don't think there's enough cattail.
No,
Uh,
if you go out to Andrew Hayden Park West, and you may actually see some sneaking out of the vegetation on the left-hand side, as long as the water is low enough. Okay?
It's sort of where the little creek comes in at the west end there.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. But
yeah,
down further along where all the vegetation is, yeah.
yeah.
where there's usually a great egret.
Yes,
Probably, yeah.
yes, yes.
Even another place you can get bitterns and rails is some of the stormwater settling ponds if they have enough cattails.
Okay, and Pierre LeBlanc is saying Bruce Pitt has Virginia Rail last 3
Okay,
years.
I haven't been to
Okay.
Bruce's Pit, Bertie.
And
Just
thanks
so you
for
know.
thanks for the answer for the question on iNaturalist.
Oh yes, well, no problem, Samvath. I'll try to keep an eye on your iNaturalist account now and that. So, thanks for being here, everybody. You've been a great
Hey,
audience.
thanks,
Thank you
everybody, and
thank you
thanks
for
once again, Ken, and take care. We'll see you in the funny pages.
thanks
Yeah.
for you doing this course.
Well, it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
All right.
You were great to work with, all of you. So.
Yep. Good night, everybody.